Good morning. My name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an author, an addiction recovery coach, a life coach, and the host of this show, the Take Your Life Back Today radio show. You can also see a video version of this on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, the search bar, type in Take Your Life Back Today show, or type in Ralf Friedrichs. I want to talk about sympathy this morning. What is sympathy? My friends, sympathy is feeling bad for someone else because of something that has happened to them. We often talk about it and feel sympathetic when someone has died or something bad has happened, saying, give them my sympathy, or I really feel bad for them. As a concept, sympathy is closely connected to both empathy and compassion. You may find that they're very similar, and but that there are some differences. Sympathy, empathy, and compassion are all kind of related in some way. What is the distinction between sympathy, empathy, and compassion? The words are often used interchangeably, but they do have important differences. Some working definition: sympathy, and power of entering on another one's feeling or mind, and compassion, empathy, and the power of entering another one's personality and imaginatively experience his or her experiences. Compassion and fellow feeling, or sorrow for sufferings of another. Chambers English Dictionary, the 1989 edition. These definitions, however, do not necessarily help to establish the difference. It may be helpful to look in the origin of the words. Sympathy comes from the Greek syn, meaning pathos or suffering. Compassion is from the Latin, meaning with the passus to suffer. In other words, sympathy and compassion have exactly the same root, but are different in different languages. Empathy also comes from the Greek from and meaning in, and pathos, again for suffering. There is therefore a much stronger sense of experience in empathy. Sympathy or compassion is feeling for another person's. Empathy is experience that experience as if you were that person through maybe your own imagination. As my previous video, compassion argues, however, there has to come to an element of action to use the word compassion, which is lacking from the sympathy or empathy. A feeling of compassion then usually results in some reaction, perhaps donating money or time. Sympathy tends to begin and end with fellow feeling or expressing your sympathy. Some of the causes of sympathy can be the following. For people to experience sympathy towards someone else, several elements are necessary. You must be paying attention to the other person. Being distracted limits our ability to feel sympathy. The other person must seem in need in some sort of way. Our perception of level of need will determine the level of sympathy. For example, someone with a graze on their knee will get less sympathy than someone with a broken leg. We also are much more likely to be sympathetic towards someone who appears to have done nothing to earn their misfortune. A child who falls while running towards a parent will get more sympathy than one who was doing something that they were not supposed to be doing and has fallen as a result. Folks, sympathy in healthcare is important too. The tendency to feel more sympathy towards those who did nothing to deserve their problems can be a major problem for healthcare workers. There is a tendency to feel less sympathy to those suffering from lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, resulting from obesity, or lung cancer after a lifetime of smoking than those who have contracted similar diseases with no obvious cause. Healthcare workers and others need to fight against the tendency because we are all human and all equally deserving of care and support during our difficult times. The level of sympathy is also likely to be affected by the specific circumstances. We are generally more likely to be more sympathetic towards someone who is geographically closer than someone on the other side of the world. This is a spatial proximity. We are also more sympathetic towards people who are more like us. This is referred to as social proximity. Furthermore, we are also more likely to be sympathetic if we have experienced the same situation personally and found it difficult. However, ongoing exposure to same or similar situation will dampen sympathy. For an example, the first time we see pictures or hear about an earthquake, we may be motivated to donate money to relieve suffering. If, however, there is another earthquake elsewhere, a few days later, we may feel less sympathetic in a situation, sometimes referred to as compassion fatigue. Do you see what I'm saying? The differences. So showing sympathy is a really important thing too, because sympathy is indelibly linked to bad experiences. For an example, the death of a family member is it is often appropriate to show your sympathy with someone else. While this can seem like a formally, the idea is to help the other person to feel better by showing that you understand that they are having a bad time and may need some help. Sympathy may be expressed either verbally or non-verbally. Example of sympathy expressed verbally include some of these things right here. Speaking to someone to say how sorry you are about this situation, and to sending a card when someone has been bereaved. Folks, examples of sympathy expressed non-verbally include some of these things. Patting someone on the shoulder at a funeral, giving them a hug, putting a hand on someone's arm when they tell you their bad news, and also to dropping your tone of voice when you speak, more of a mellow and sympathetic way. For more about this, please watch my other two videos, and I talk about nonverbal communications. Sympathy is innate, but is also learned. It is important to master both. Children as young as 12 months old have been observed to show sympathetic behavior, for example, giving their parents a toy without being prompted, or crying when another baby cries. These are very basic sympathetic responses. Some children are inherently more social and sympathetic. However, as children learn and develop, their ability to feel sympathy also develops as they learn from their parents and others around them. Given that adolescents are often described as exhibiting selfish behavior, it seems likely that that ability to sympathetic continues to develop throughout childhood and adolescence, and probably into adulthood. This means that it is possible to develop your ability to feel and express sympathy even as an adult. Sympathy, compassion, and empathy, all related but meaning differently. Call me at 844-405-HELP. Together we can help each other take our lives back. Be good to yourselves and always be good to each other. And remember, a simple smile to a total stranger can help that stranger for the rest of their life, and it can change your life. Always include God in everything you do, each and every day. May God bless each and every one of you. Folks, sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Related in the family, but meaning differently. Start taking care of yourselves, and always, always